All right, so um, unfortunately, my normal camera that I use for the movie report broke and is currently in need of repair. So for this week, I'm actually going to be doing something a little different. I am going to do the movie report for a couple movies, Frankenstein, as well as The Running Man. So, without further ado, I would like to get Frankenstein out of the way. Now, Frankenstein is written for the screen and directed by Guillermo del Toro, while also starring Oscar Isaac and Jacob Elordi, with Oscar playing Victor Frankenstein and Jacob Elordi playing the creature. Now, Frankenstein is a tale as old as time, and it has been adapted countless times. You have the one from the 1930s, the classic. You also have films by Kenneth Branagh, Stephen Sommers, Francis Ford Coppola. You even have Frankenstein as an action hero, and like I, Frankenstein. It really is one of the most adapted stories ever. So, is this version any different? No, not really. But it's by Guillermo del Toro. And weirdly enough, that makes a huge difference. Now, what makes this version different comparative to all the other versions? Well, for starters, the cinematography, the music, as well as just the production design alone have Guillermo del Toro's flair added to it. And because it has his flair added, it's very much his own unique taste and thus makes it his version. Like I said, it's a tale as old as time, but there's so much more artistry added to it, so much unique visual flares and brutality that comes with Del Toro's signature flair. And you do feel a little uncomfortable because when you see the creature being assembled, you actually see, Victor play with the nerves and insert the eyeballs. You actually see him crafting the body, and the levels of gore that are present here make you feel a little more uncomfortable this time around. And Guillermo del Toro has always had a flair for gore as a more powerful motif when it comes to the brutality of his stories. And this is no different. It's brutal, it's fucked up, and it's beautiful in its presentation. And Jacob Elordi, I want to say, gives probably the best performance of the movie as the creature. He has been around for 7 years now in terms of him as an actor. You have him in stuff like Euphoria, Saltburn, and the upcoming Wuthering Heights, but he hasn't really had a really standout performance where he has been allowed to flex his skills as an actor. And I can say finally that Guillermo del Toro has given him the opportunity to really hone his skills and prove himself as an actor. He really shines as the creature. You feel for him in both his struggles as a literal new man and as a cursed sort of monster who cannot die. And this also, I think, is where the strongest part of Del Toro's Frankenstein really shines. It's split up into two parts. You have the movie from Frankenstein's perspective, and then you have it from the creature's perspective. And as much as Frankenstein's perspective is nice and all, it's really where you sink into the creature, where you can tell this is really the movie that Del Toro wanted to make. And this is also where a couple gripes that I have, as well as a couple praises I have, really seep into this section of the story. You see, Del Toro and most of his fantasies, mostly including Hellboy, Pan's Labyrinth, Shape of Water, parts of Nightmare Alley, all sink in. And that is, oh, and Crimson Peak, which is the monster is never as truly as evil as the person and people themselves. And this is the epitome of that story. It's like he was destined to make a Frankenstein movie because all of his themes and all of his movies share those motifs. And this is the true culmination of his style. When we get into, when we get into the creature's story, it is just Del Toro on full blast. It is brutal, it is tragic, it is gory. It is everything that makes Del Toro the true visual filmmaker and storyteller that we know him as today. Every shot, every piece of acting, every direction, every word spoken is filled with this beautifully layered sense of fairy tale irony. It works so well. What's unfortunate is that ever since The Shape of Water, from Shape of Water to Nightmare Alley to Pinocchio to now, there's this level of fairy taleism that has seemed to kind of proliferate throughout most of Del Toro's work. And once you notice this, it becomes a bit of a trope. And with Nightmare Alley and Pinocchio, he definitely dove headfirst into it. But here, considering it's Frankenstein, it does work. However, there are a couple moments where you're just like, you notice the flowery language in his dialogue, and some of the shots that are framed are clearly meant to invoke this warm sense of a fairy tale. And it becomes a little cumbersome and tiresome at times. That's not to say that it's bad by any means. It becomes noticeable once you are aware of Del Toro as a filmmaker. He, like Wes Anderson, has kind of fallen into a sort of style that has kind of consumed him as a filmmaker. He has worked for years and finally found what works best for him. And it really does show here far more than most of his other films. But since it is Frankenstein, it actually works towards his favor. It's a little bit of an annoyance, but I think the average moviegoer can move right past it and just recognize this movie for what it is, which is a really, really good fairy tale that is a little unevenly paced and has a little moments of too flowery for my taste, but it's a straightforward adaptation of Frankenstein that is done probably better than most of the adaptations. This is easily like a top 5. It's done with such a level of conviction. It is done with such level of dedication that everyone involved, both in front of the camera and behind the camera, is just giving it their all. And you can feel the love and respect in every performance, in every shot, in every musical cue. The music by Alexander Desplat is amazing. And Dan Lunston, as the cinematographer, composes shots that are just truly phenomenal. And I didn't even get into the sections of Mia Goth portraying two characters because that is something that I actually didn't know until I finished the movie. Once you figure out what her real role in this movie is, you realize that she is just a truly captivating and phenomenal actress who thrives in the horror environment and the supernatural. Christoph Waltz also brings a much needed level of tragedy into this movie that actually works well into the overall themes of nature versus nurture, man versus God. Oscar Isaac is so compelling as Frankenstein that, you forget, oh, wait, this guy's American. It's like his accent that he learned from Moon Knight works so well here. And I have nothing but praises for him. And I have nothing but praises for, I never remember his name, but it's the guy that plays, the old caretaker from Harry Potter. He was the old man. He was Geppetto in Pinocchio, but he plays the blind man here. And even though his screen time is very limited, he gives probably the second most powerful performance in the entire movie. So, what is it that I think personally of Frankenstein? It's easily a 9 out of 10 by a very wide measure. This is among Guillermo del Toro's best works because this story is suited for him and his style. But not only is it one of his best works, this is one of the best adaptations of Frankenstein that we have ever gotten because it is made by someone who fundamentally understands the tragedy of the story. You see, the creature is not a monster. He is a man born of tragedy and another man's lust to defy God. It is a phenomenal movie that must be seen. You know, if you weren't able to see it in a theater, watch it on Netflix. It is truly, 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 truly phenomenal by every means of the definition. Which why it pains me to say that we now move to the second part of this video. The Running Man. The Running Man fucking sucks. It's amazing how bad this movie is. I'm a huge Edgar Wright fan. I've loved his work from Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Baby Driver. I loved his standout elements of Ant-Man when you knew that it was him. And I'm even a Last Night in Soho apologist, you know? An action comedy horror director trying to take a swing into the full horror drama genre. I have nothing but respect for Edgar Wright, or rather, I did have respect for him. I don't have respect for him anymore. This movie killed my love and admiration for Edgar Wright because, you know what? I'll hold off on the reason why. Let's actually get into the movie first. What is The Running Man about? The Running Man tells the story of Ben Richards, played pretty decently and actually pretty well by Glenn Powell, as he struggles in a near-future dystopia where the rich control the wealth and the poor struggle in the slums. His daughter is sick, and he wants to pull his wife, played by Jamie Lenson, out of poverty. So he signs up for The Running Man, a game show where you are given 30 days to survive being hunted by everyone in America and a select group of hunters and corporate bot police officers. And you're broadcasted on Freevee on the network. You have to survive for 30 days and you'll win $1 billion, this world's version of dollars in currency. And, you know, it's a sort of remake / readaptation of the 1980, I think, 7 film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is also based off of the short story by Stephen King. And this is a little more of a faithful adaptation to The Running Man, but it has Edgar Wright's almost style and flair. I say almost, and we'll get into that. But what does this movie do right? Well, the first 2 acts. The first act really drives home the world building of this world. You feel for these characters. You feel for Ben Richards. Glenn Powell is very much a leading man. You understand his plight from the moment he comes on screen. And it's very easy to get behind him. But, you know, the cracks very soon start to show from the moment the movie begins, because this movie is trying to be a social commentary. And it's not a very good one. It's not. It's really, really not. The dialogue is so on the nose that I could just literally point and be like, oh, there it is. I see it. It's right there. And it's like you have words just like, oh, the rich only flourish while us poor have to slum. And they say that like 5 or 6 times before the 30-minute mark. It's like they're just beating you over the fucking head with the metaphors, and it just doesn't fucking stop. It doesn't. And it's so annoying because I'm trying to get invested in this world, and it's reminding me like, hey, here's the message right here. Here's the message. It's like, I get it. Please, just let me enjoy the story. And, you know, things do kind of pick up a little bit in the second act once the Running Man actually starts, and it's actually pretty decent, all things considered. The action's actually pretty good. The kills are pretty nice, and you do actually see, you know, you do get a little more of the salty in the commentary, where we actually see how, you know, to Ben Richards' face, the company's like, yo, man, you know, we just want what's best for the company, and we want what's best for you. Meanwhile, they turn around, and then to the audience, they go, look at this piece of shit. He wants you and your fucking kids dead. That's actually pretty brilliant, all things considered, because we have seen in the media, and if you remember, you know, the Bush era and what they did to get people to sign up for Iraq, or rather the Iraq War, this is very reminiscent of it, because it's basically just taking something and flipping it into something way more fucked up than it ever had any right to be. And it was good. It was really, really good. Not the Iraq War, the Bush era, but how they conveyed some levels of media manipulation. However, when they first do that, it's a brilliant reveal, but then they just do it over and over again. It becomes schlockish, you know? It becomes tiresome because it goes from very subtle, you know, media manipulation, and then you're like, okay, I see how they're doing this, to then, okay, it's all in your face. And that's the thing. It's all in your face. Is this what you want to see? Do you want to see the movie over there? No, look at the social commentary. It's right up here. It's not subtle. And what it is beautiful when it's subtle, but when it's in your face, it becomes tiresome. And this movie becomes that. And on top of that, it starts wasting performances that would have otherwise been brilliant by how often they're used. Coleman Domingo, I think his name is. He plays essentially the show host that hosts The Running Man. And he is great initially. But like I said, he essentially is the Stanley Tucci from the Hunger Games of this movie. But where they knew how to basically sprinkle him in from time to time, he's a huge name right now. So you need to have him throughout most of the movie. And he just, you kind of fucking hate him by the end of the movie, because he becomes so annoying, because he is basically the mouthpiece for this whole show. He becomes the mouthpiece for Josh Brolin. Who, by the way, ironically enough, Josh Brolin's character, who plays the main producer of The Running Man, does probably the best job in conveying the subtlety of media manipulation and government overreach. He does a really good job, and you love to hate him. And that's the thing. He's used sparingly. So that's why anytime he shows up, you know shit's fucked. It's great. But Coleman's character just becomes cumbersome. And what started off as a scene-chewing performance, you slowly just go, can this fucking stop, please? I want to like you as an actor. I don't want to see you. And then there comes a lot of really sloppy shit. There's a whole arc where Ben has to essentially record himself and send in a tape every day. Oh, right, send in a tape. That's actually a positive. A lot of the tech here is very analog. So despite how bad the movie is, it does have a unique and distinct feel to it. It feels a lot like, the late 90s, early 2000s. So it does stand out, at least in that sense. But anyway, Ben has to record himself using a tape deck every day. And they just kind of abandon that. And then there are moments where he loses his gear, but then he has in the next scene. So it's like, wait, how was he able to get that back? His stuff got flown out the window. There's no way he would have been able to find that. Oh, because if he loses his tape deck, then guess what? He doesn't win any money. He's still going to be hunted, but he won't win the money. And it's like there are inconsistencies with this world that just doesn't make sense. And also tonally, it's very much whiplash. You have a moment where Glenn Powell's giving this raw performance of a man just wanting to do right by his family, a man wanting to do right by his family, a man wanting to do right by his family, a man wanting to do right by his family, a man wanting to do right by his family, a man who wants to do right by his family. Is that getting annoying? Because that's literally a third of the dialogue that he fucking says, and it becomes so annoying so fucking quickly. Anywho, he's a man that wants to do right by his family, and then you have a scene where a guy's just like, hi there, I'm Mr. X, and I'm here to show you how the government's lying to you. And it's like, okay, cool. Why did you show that immediately after, like, Glenn Powell just gave a phenomenal performance? Don't you think that's a little bit of a tonal whiplash, a tonal inconsistency? And, the way, and like I said, the action's like subpar and slightly okay. It's like you have good stunt work, but the action itself is not good. And this is where a lot of the problems I have with Edgar Wright come in. You see, he produced, he wrote, and he directed this movie. This is an Edgar Wright movie, first and foremost. And so much of what made him Edgar Wright, the sharp, very, like, tongue-sharp dialogue, is gone. The innovative and inventive action is gone. There's maybe one or two sequences that involve music, which he is well known for, where they actually incorporate into the movie. But out of an almost 2 hour and 20-minute movie, you get two sequences that actually feel like Edgar Wright. And here's another thing about Edgar Wright. He is very well known for being able to at least craft very well-paced and well thought out stories that have a great beginning, middle, and end. And now we get to why this movie is as bad as it is. You see, the first part of the movie, the first act, is like a solid 7. It's messy, but it's fun. The second act is like a 6.5 to a 7. It's fine. There's a couple sections that just don't make sense and honestly really bring the movie down. But there's a whole sequence with Michael Cera that is just so good. Honestly, Michael Cera is probably the best part of this whole movie, which I never thought I'd hear myself say. But his character, his arc, and his zaniness work very well. Also, the Derry, Maine Easter egg is just so much fun. But then you get to the third act. And even people that defend this movie all agree that the third act is horrible. It is without a doubt the worst third act I have ever seen in a movie. Every single piece of goodwill this movie had at least slightly built up is immediately thrown out the window. There are some Marvel movies and some action movies where you can tell they reshot most of the third act and they're just like trying to splice together every little bit of footage they can to make something like slightly consistent and resemble a movie. They do that here, except nothing was reshot. That is just how they formulated it. So, mild spoilers, but then again, I don't give a shit because I hated this fucking movie. Essentially, it all starts when Ben Richards stops a woman at gunpoint, breaks into her car, and kidnaps her. Except he then gives her the gun, and then it's revealed that, other militia try to stop them, but then she's like, wait a minute, they're just trying to save me. Why are they dead? And then on the show, she sees that the media manipulated her into being a hostage instead. So now she sees just how propaganda works. And then on top of that, remember how I said that there's like dialogue that's so on the nose, it's like, there it is, right there. Well, you see, this is where it comes to the forefront, because from the moment the third act starts, from the moment it ends, every line of dialogue, with the exception of maybe 10 lines, is literally so on the nose, it is painful. You see, this lady's a rich lady, and she's just like, you're poor and you're gross because you murder people. I didn't murder people. I was doing it for my family. But you hate your family. Also, by the way, Lee Pace is in this movie, and he was going to be the coolest character in the movie. He plays a masked hunter who's like, yeah, I'm the masked hunter. I'm hunter number 5, and I am so cool. He is cool, Like, there's a whole scene. I got a grenade. Whoop. Back at you. One of the big things about him is that he kept his mask on. It was great. And then guess what? He takes his mask off, and every single bit of intrigue that he had just gets thrown right out the window. And it's like there was like another hour and a half of this movie that could have easily been done to like at least flesh out this act, and instead it's done in like 30 minutes. And everything is jumpstart, 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 jumpstart in terms of pacing. And the performances also go down. There's a cool sequence on a plane where Glenn Powell gives a great performance. And for a second, they actually play into the nihilism of this world and the pessimism that follows. And it does a really good job at making you realize what kind of battle you're fighting. You are fighting a losing battle against power that is simply unmatched and unstoppable. And I really, really like that. I love that. But they don't stick to it. They give you a happy ending, kind of. And it's messy. It's messy. They try to go all over the place. Like, for example, there's a whole scene with the plane, and right before it stops, you get so let me tell you why things are not the way they are. And it's like, really? We're doing this again? And it just stops the movie dead and then explains the rest of the movie in this sort of like angry nerd, angry Joe show, like nostalgia critic style that just doesn't work. You know, it stops the movie dead in its dramatic tracks and just goes to the zany element. That doesn't work. And then on top of that, this movie, I almost have to give this movie some level of credit because it has the fucking balls to end with an homage to the United CEO, like CEO exec getting shot. That is how this movie ends. And look, say what you will about, rich people and CEOs getting shot. Say what you will about that. I don't care. But the fact that it's the movie's final message and it is blatant as looking at the sun, its message is kill every rich person you can because they deserve to die. And it's like, really? That's the takeaway you want from this movie? Not, hey, let's work together and like build a better utopia for ourselves. We don't need the rich. It's like, you think they were hinting at that. There's a couple moments that they actually do hint to that. We only have each other. And that would have been a really good message. But no, the message really does end with kill every rich person, every powerful person. Kill them dead. Shoot them in front of everybody because that's what they deserve. There's people with signs that say, kill the rich, kill the execs, kill their families. And you're just like, what? That's the message you want to take away? Like just killing people in the streets in public view? That's the message? Really? Yeah, Josh Brolin fucking dies. Who fucking cares? But like, we get it. He's evil. But that's the message you want to take away from this? That's the message you want to push on people? Really? Don't play to the system. Build yourselves up and do something else. It's like, I get it. You want to fight against the system, but considering how like Glenn Powell's character literally dresses up like Luigi Mangione and kills Josh Brolin. That's not that there's no way that was just fucking happenstance. It seems like an awfully dangerous message at this point. And that's how the movie ends. That's how the movie ends. And that's how my love for Edgar Wright kind of ends with it. You had source material for an amazing social commentary with some brutal action that could have easily had a message about, rising up together, fighting the people that put us down, while also forgiving the people who didn't know. But instead, you get an on-the-nose level dialogue movie with some of the worst action and worst writing, worst pacing that I have seen in a very, very long time. It truly is Edgar Wright's worst movie. And this is the worst movie of the year that I have seen so far. Most disappointing, actually. I wouldn't say the worst, because I did see Scream Boat Willie, and that was an absolute dumpster fire. But this one stung in particular. I hate this movie. I hate the message that it was trying to convey, because it tries to act altruistic, but it comes across mean-spirited and almost downright nihilistic in the most worst ways possible. I give The Running Man an easy 4 out of 10. It has good performances, some pretty halfway decent action, and almost a couple sequences and a couple moments of brilliance where you could tell that if they had just toned up the subtlety, I know, right? Tone up the subtlety, but that's how stupid this movie portrays everything, so why can't I? If it just toned up the subtlety, this could have been a true masterpiece of social commentary. But instead, you have the definition of bullshit schlock. And that's what this movie is. Bullshit schlock. Anywho, those are my reviews on Frankenstein and The Running Man. The Running Man, fucking awful. Save your money. Don't bother watching it. Not even when it's on streaming. Frankenstein, watch it. It's a really, really good movie. Anywho, I'm Noah Pfister. This has been the Movie Report. I'm trying to get my camera fixed so I can get the normal setup back. But I'll see you on the next one. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you on the next one. Peace.